Good morning, everybody. My name is Phil Davis. I am a systems engineer at Arctic Wolf, and today we've got a webinar on security operations partnership with Northdoor. So what we're going to do is just go through a couple of introductions and the agenda. I'd like to introduce AJ Thompson and myself. So I'm Phil Davis. I'm a senior systems engineer in the UK. I cover one of the territories in the UK, and I work with our partners to deliver services. AJ, would you like to introduce yourself and Northdoor?
Certainly. Good morning, all. My name is AJ Thompson. I'm the CCO at Northdoor. Just a little bit of background before Phil starts to cover the interesting parts of the presentation. A little bit about us, Northdoor. We are an IT data consultancy. We've been around for almost 35 years now, I think. And we focus on three areas of an organization's business that we've called store it, protect it, and use it. Store it is, as you imagine, on-site, on-prem and cloud technologies. Use it is all around business intelligence. But today we're here to talk about the protect it piece and building upon our award-winning services around security. And the reason we are speaking today about Arctic Wolf and why Arctic Wolf and why we partner with them. When we looked at building a security practice, we have a few sort of generic models that we look to fill. Number one is the solution that we chose needs to be a Gartner top quadrant technology. We don't want to work with vast, gargantuan, enormous operations where you don't speak to the same person day to day. So we need to be able to build a relationship, and our clients need to be able to build a relationship with whoever we partner with, so that when you call, you know who you're speaking to, you've spoken to them before, and they understand a bit about you and your business. We need to make sure that any solution is a rapid solution to deploy. Time and time again, we've been involved in projects with or legacy projects that have taken months and sometimes even years to deploy. And we like to have a solution that, price is important for people, cost is important. People still do see technology around security as being a cost rather than a benefit. So we need to be able to offer a model that where you can start with a little piece of security coverage and then grow that out to a full MDR solution. So those are the four pieces of the puzzle that we like to fill. And having worked with and looked at a number of technologies, we decided that Arctic Wolf was a partner for us. And from us, our engagement so far, we have a 100% renewal with all of the customers that have taken Arctic Wolf. So we're very pleased with it, and more importantly, our customers are as well. So with that sort of bit of gloss as to why Arctic Wolf, I'll pass across to Phil, and he can tell you all about the technology and the wonderful things that it does.
Thank you, AJ. So I'm going to start with looking at what is security operations, some of the common approaches, and what you actually need to do this in the first place, before talking about the actual Arctic Wolf solution and specifically what we offer. Most of you are probably familiar with various elements of this particular graphic. So nearly all customers have some form of technology in place, whether that be firewalls, endpoint protection, security around certain applications, and it's mostly done at the tools level. As you move up into stage 2, you're probably adding on a level of services, because you can't do everything yourself 24/7. That's not possible anymore in this day of people working around the clock. Stage 3 really takes you to, well, okay, I may have certain tools that are being actively monitored and capturing certain information, but how do I respond to those out of hours? How do I respond to those when I don't have the necessary skills in-house? And then as you start to move more towards the right into stage 4, the term security operations comes into its own. And then you're going to be starting to look at, well, I need to follow a specific framework. I need to have guidance and governance over what we're doing in security, because again, it's increasingly difficult. So maybe you're following things like NIST or Cyber Essentials, program, and you're more focused on the outcomes rather than the actual doing of a specific approach. So I'll take sort of a little step backwards, because it's really important to remember where most security platforms have evolved from. And historically, it was a case of, well, we had endpoint protection, which was, in most cases, antivirus, next-gen antivirus, endpoint protection platforms, EDR, managed EDR. Then the big word XDR sort of came into its own, and now managed XDR, which is typically branded as MDR. And it's a bit of a minefield for most customers to go into this and say, well, okay, I want to buy MDR, but not all MDRs are equal. It's a bit like saying, I want to buy a car, and you've got to range from a Fiat to a Ferrari. And what we want to try and do is give a little bit of a breakdown of understanding. Now, most tool sets along this curve come from the antivirus, single point of control, single solution offerings. In other words, they're very good at dealing with their own tools, but they don't have the broad visibility. XDR expanded that visibility piece and allowed you to start to bring in other telemetry sources, other security integrations, so that you could pull data into a platform and then start to see a bigger picture. But that still was quite limiting for a lot of the vendors out there, because it's really based around their endpoint technology as the first port of call. And then they're starting to add on some of these other elements over time. So we took an approach of basically having very broad visibility from day one, being vendor neutral. So whatever tool sets you want to use, you can. And we provide a SIM, we provide SOAR capabilities, we provide a 24/7 SOC. We do those security services, and we deliver an MDR solution, and have done since 2014, before the term MDR even became recognized within Gartner or any of the other vendors. The other aspect to this whole security evolution piece is that security is not just about technology. It's about people and process and technology. And as an American organization, we follow the NIST framework, and it is very, very much following the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover path. But it's a combination of people, process, and technology, not just a technology stack, not just AI. So if we think about this, how do you actually build your own security operations partner? What do you need to build a platform like this? So we've got a really, really busy slide, and you'll be glad to know I'm not going to go this into too much depth. What I'm going to talk about is this at a very high level. And this is what we actually use to describe how Arctic Wolf has built its own back-end platform for our customers. What sort of things do you need? You need threat intelligence. You need the information that identifies how certain attack things happen. You need to have a security monitoring and triage platform. That's like having a SIM. That's like having integrations with endpoint detections, having network detections. It's having the operational capability of running a SOC 24/7. Obviously, you have to staff that on a 24/7 basis, the hiring, the training, the retaining of people. And then you go into the incident management piece. In other words, when you start to detect things, how do you deal with them? How do you deal with incidents? Do you have incident response retainers? Do you have help with cyber insurance? How do you manage cases as they go from the initial alert to triage to remediation? How do you react to some of those incidents automatically through response actions? Can you contain a device? Can you disable an account in Entra or whatever it may happen to be? And then we move into the situational awareness picture. This is more about some of the KPIs that the SOC has to deal with, but also around some of the threat information that we might be able to gather in terms of vulnerability management. That is an add-on that we can offer, but we're not going to really concentrate too much on that today. And then you go into sort of the risk-based approach, and how do you constantly look forward to try and reduce the customer's risk. And we do that proactively by plugging security gaps that customers have, and we do that by a continuous improvement cycle that we have within our platform to make sure that we're always learning and our customers are always learning too. So if you take that as a whole, that's what anyone who wants to stand this service up on their own would have to really build it from scratch. And we've done this so that we can deliver this to our customers. There are hidden costs of building versus going with a SOC partner like Arctic Wolf. There are obvious costs, like you have to go and source and pay for a SIM. You have the professional services that go around the integration and then building of that platform. Whereas with Arctic Wolf, we wanted to provide a fixed subscription, known cost that doesn't change, and a one-time onboarding process. But there are lots of hidden costs. So how about the staff that you have to pay for to manage, to monitor your environment on a 24/7 basis? We know that Gartner say 8 to 12 people for a 24/7 operation when you take into account holidays, sickness, etc. What about vulnerability scanning? Who's going to do that for you? Who's going to manage that process? What about threat intelligence? Threat intelligence is the feeds that you put into your SIM platform to do those detections, and they're constantly being updated, constantly changing, with new threats added all the time. What about new attack surface integrations? You know, who's going to say, oh, we've now got this application that can give me some data, but who's going to actually build and run and manage that integration for you? And what about the dark web? Who's going to go and scan that for us? So the key thing around our approach is that you probably have a fixed budget. So you're using your existing IT spend and you want to be able to operationalize that. And Forrester has calculated that we've got about a 411% return on investment by using us as a SOC partner as opposed to doing a build-it-yourself approach. The other aspect is around compliance. And again, it may be that you're operating towards a framework, whether that be, in this case, NIST, which is very much about focusing on the outcomes of the tooling and the processes that you're using. So how do you identify threats? How do you protect against those threats? How do you detect them? How you respond to them? And how you recover from them if something actually bad does happen? So what I'm going to now do is talk about specifically what we do for Arctic Wolf in terms of our services. So we have built an open XDR architecture. Now, what that really means, and this is sort of built into our Arctic Wolf Aurora platform, means that we can pull in information from networking, endpoint, external risks, from cloud, both IaaS and SaaS, from identity management platforms, and from physical firewalls that might be in a customer's environment, and pull all of that information, irrespective of the vendor concerned, so vendor neutral approach, into the Aurora platform, and then do something with it. Now, this is shown in a slightly different way, and this is sort of the typical approach. So at the endpoint, we'll integrate, typically via API, into the tooling that you already have deployed, whether that be anything from Microsoft Defender to CrowdStrike to SentinelOne to Sophos, you name it, we can typically integrate with the endpoint tooling that you already got. We'll complement that with an agent, our own agent, which is not an EDR tool. We don't sell it as an EDR tool. It's there to complement and give you defense in depth. And it gives us a lot more lower level information. On the network, integrations with your firewalls, so pull information from those firewalls, monitor those, look at the activity that's happening. But also we deploy network sensors wherever you have a firewall to look at the traffic that you allow through that firewall. Because ultimately a rule in your firewall may allow some bad actor through. We want to be able to catch that and at the time that it happens in the very first instance in as short a time as possible. Then we move on to cloud, the infrastructure as a service or SaaS operations, again, integrating with the various cloud platforms, Azure, AWS, and Google. From an identity perspective, integrating with Active Directory and Entra, or with other federated type login platforms. The human element, how do you create a human firewall? You do that through training. And then various applications such as SaaS applications like 365 or Google Workspace, Salesforce, lots of those different SaaS applications that do have security elements in them that can be monitored and actioned upon. So all this information that we're gathering is put into the Aurora platform. And then, like in any modern day infrastructure, we're going to talk about AI. We've been using machine learning since day one. We have a platform of over 7,000 customers. We collect over 7 petabytes of data a week. We have a huge platform, and what does AI like best? Huge amounts of data that it can work against. And we use AI to be able to identify threats as they're happening, to be able to correlate activities from one element of our environment to another, because sometimes there can be things that look innocuous in isolation, but in combination, they can actually be or pose a really serious threat. So that's what the platform is doing. It's identifying things so that we then can alert those to our SOC teams. So under our managed detection and response service, we have a 24/7 SOC. We have over 1,000 SOC engineers within the Arctic Wolf family today, and they are going to be monitoring all of this activity. Yes, the platform is going to be doing a lot of that work to filter out the noise, the duplication, etc. But when something is put on a SOC analyst's desk, and we do use people because we believe that people and processes are far more efficient in terms of getting the right outcome than just allowing AI to make some random decision based upon a series of tick boxes. So it is very much a people-driven process, but it means that when a threat has been identified and alerted to yourselves as a customer, that's had human security analyst eyes on it, and that we know that with a 99.9% certainty it's a true positive. So it's something you need to do something about. But it also helps us eliminate all the noise that a lot of organizations actually see from their tooling. Now, we will deal with certain activities through our SOAR capabilities, so whether that be containment at the endpoint, or disabling of accounts, or building new firewall rules to block malicious URLs. Lots of different things are possible. Then it comes down to how do we interact with you as a customer? Yes, you'll call into the SOC on a 24/7 basis, but then you also have access to what we call the concierge delivery model. Now, every customer gets access to 3 named concierge security engineers. Yeah, that's 3 named people. They're not dedicated, but they are named. You have access to their calendars. You have access to their email addresses. You can contact them and ask them advice and questions. But also, they then help provide that bridge between the SOC, because obviously they're working 24/7. You're not. So they act as the bridge between the SOC and yourself for explanations of, oh, I had a case at 3 a.m. in the morning. We did this, that, and the other. But actually, how can we now start to help you improve or make sure that that same problem doesn't come and happen again 3 o'clock next morning and the next morning and the next morning? So we're building in the approach of improvements, continuous improvements, so that any event that we see, we don't see again, or if we do, it's for a very good reason. That also then drives into what we call the security journey. The security journey is about how we then help our customers improve their security posture over time by having regular monthly meetings, or maybe quarterly, or maybe more frequently, regular meetings with you as a customer to plan out the sort of investigations that we're going to do, the sort of micro assessments we're going to run in your environment to identify the weaknesses, the potential threats, potential holes, or blind spots that you have in your security tooling, so that we can help you bridge those or block those gaps. So that's managed detection response. We then also do vulnerability management through our managed risk platform. That's identifying vulnerabilities within the operating system and applications, within your network, within the external environment, the customer-facing, your internet-facing services that you might also have, and being able to advise you on things to do and how to address those particular problems. We talked about the human firewall earlier, so we have managed security awareness training. So we have our own platform that is 100% managed by us, which means that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to curate anything. You don't have to go in and say, I want that training this week or that training next month. It incorporates quizzes, it incorporates informational videos, it incorporates phishing simulations, so that your users can be trained or be able to identify the threats that they are being bombarded with on a daily basis much more easily, and be not afraid to put their hand up and say, I think this is suspicious, and I need to raise the fact that this could be suspicious. Can somebody help me? On the far left-hand side of this screen, with something new for us. A month ago, we acquired a company called Cylance. So we now actually have our own endpoint solution. And that's going to be called Aurora Defense, or is now being called Aurora Defense. And we will be open to any questions around, what you want to do in that respect. So if you're looking to replace an existing endpoint platform, we can do that with our acquisition of Cylance, and we can have conversations around that should that be of interest to you. But we're not going to be forcing any customer to go down our own endpoint solution route. If you still want to stick with the existing tools that you've decided and invested in and understand, we're more than happy to carry on that way. Last but not least is incident response services. So true digital forensics and incident response services. We can provide those at a very, very low introductory cost without having large retainers up front. And these allow us to have literally scoping calls within an hour, reduced hourly rates if a incident is actually called up, but without having to pay for like 40 hours up front on an annual basis and potentially use it or lose it approach. It's very much a much more low-cost approach, or a way of getting into incident response should you ever need it, but hope you never do. So that's the platform today. We talked about the concierge delivery model, and I want to really focus in on this because our approach to delivering services to our customers is more about delivering security outcomes than it is about delivering point solutions or point pieces of technology. Yes, there are elements in there. So from the technology side, we have the security journey, that programmatic approach to reducing risk within your environment. We have a tool called Data Explorer that allows you to search through all your telemetry that we've ingested into our platform, even going back 10 years if that's what you want to store in the platform. We have this Jumpstart IR planner, so that digital forensics planning portal. So it allows you to build an incident response plan, have that validated by us, and then be on call should anything happen, but without paying huge amounts up front. We have tailored reporting in the platform. So if there's a report that you need and want out of the platform, you can ask us to try and do that. And where possible, we will try and accommodate you. But it's very much a people process as well. So from a deployment team perspective, we have a dedicated project manager who will be assigned to any new customer. We have a dedicated onboarding engineer who will be assigned to that delivery process. And then we will hand across to our customer success team for ongoing management, and then to our concierge security team. So there's 3 named people that you'll have access to, so that they will act as that bridge between you and the SOC, and then also give you that ongoing strategic advice, that planning and running of micro assessments within your environment to make sure that security gets better over time. And last but not least is the incident response services, that true digital forensics. We even do things like threat actor negotiations. We even heard of us hacking the hackers to get somebody's data back. So it can be at a very, very detailed and low level. Now, if we look at the concierge security team, they are, as I said, they're not 365 days a year, 24/7. They are available 8 till 5 local time for planned engagements, for scheduled meetings, or on request meetings. So they even make their calendars available to our customers. If they have questions, they can look for a 15-minute slot and say, well, I've got a problem here, or I don't understand this. What do I need to do here? They're there for strategic security advice, for compliance support. So if you are following a framework, we have people who have worked in the compliance areas before. They will understand about cyber essentials. They will understand about the NIST framework. They will understand about cybersecurity. How do you have to answer a specific question to get the best outcome? And then also, but not least, is post-incident support. So in the unlikely event that we actually have to deal with an incident, then obviously they can help follow up with that and make sure that you get the best out of that incident follow-up that we have. So it is very much a team. It's you and the concierge security team. We always go through this sort of circular security journey route of discovery. You help us prioritize what it is you want. You set your priorities. We will then run the security posture in-depth reviews. That's what SPIDERS stands for. Those micro assessments that we look at your environment and we build that out. We're going to focus in based upon your requirements. There are always going to be detours because things happen. Certainly in IT, things just happen, and we might have a security incident that we need to say, well, actually, we never really even thought that was something Maybe you never told Arctic Wolf about that particular service or server that was running in a cupboard in a remote location, or whatever it may be. And there may have been some form of attempt to you know, compromise that particular system. So detours happen, and we are very good at dealing with those detours. But then we go back into the security journey. It's about constantly doing this. It's about constantly going back on a regular basis and looking for the areas that might require assistance. So the aim of this whole security journey approach and the concierge security team is about reducing your cyber risk, ensuring that you are insurable. And there are an awful lot of customers that we talk to who don't have cyber insurance but want it, or maybe they decide actually we'll self-insure because it's so expensive to get cyber insurance. But being able to deal with the security journey and being able to proactively understand where your gaps and weaknesses are can help you get cyber insurance as well with reduced premiums. We want to deliver fast security value, so being able to identify things very quickly, being able to close things down very quickly, but also eliminating the blind spots that you might have in your environment that you knew nothing about in the first place. Approximately 70% of new customers that we onboard with Arctic Wolf, we find things that they knew nothing about. We find blind spots and security holes that we can fix very, very quickly. So who is Arctic Wolf as an organization? As of a month ago, we were 7,000 customers. We're now 10,000 with our acquisition of Cylance. We've gone up from 800 to 1,000 security engineers in the last month, again, through that acquisition. But we're bringing in huge quantities of data. I talked about, over 7 trillion events per week. Well, it's actually over 8 trillion events per week. That's a number that is really hard to quantify. So I'll quantify it in a slightly different way. If you use social media, or you have kids like me who use social media, imagine all the social media posts that happen every single day, and then multiply that by 100, and that is the sort of numbers we're talking about in terms of the amount of security telemetry we bring from our customers and deal with on a daily basis. We respond to over 600 digital forensic incident response cases per year. This is not dealing with a cyber incident in your environment in 365, or maybe a piece of malware on a laptop. This is about true digital forensics and incident response. The bad actors have got into somebody's environment. They may have issued a ransom note. They may have stolen data. This is where you are now reading in legal, you're wanting help. And most of these incidents that we deal with in our incident response team actually come from our cyber insurance. They're not normally Arctic Wolf customers, although we can use that service for Arctic Wolf customers if they either want, for example, a sanity check, a validation of their environment, or maybe they have had some form of threat acted upon them and they need help recovering their environment. We're now operating in over 100 customers, and we've got over 2,000 global partners. We are tried, tested, and proven. You just have to look at the IDC MDR MarketScape report, or go to Gartner Peer Insights. We are the most recommended for MDR, vulnerability assessment, and security awareness. We're the only organization, the only cybersecurity company to have ever won the CNBC Disruptor 50 3 times. And we are, as an organization, we are ISO 27001 certified. We are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. And we have our GDPR validations as well for our European customers. So we do a lot. And to put it into a little bit of perspective, we issue approximately 1 alert for every 100 million pieces of observational data. And you can imagine that's growing all the time. And we've got over 6,000 global customers, 57,000. We run over 57,000 of those spiders, the security posture in-depth reviews, those micro assessments for our customers to help them improve their security posture. And the other sort of thing on the right-hand side, the sort of stack shows us 253 trillion observations, nearly 7.5 million alerts triaged, 1.8 million alerts issued. That's across 67,000 customers, and over 7,200 separate security investigations. But ultimately, on average, it leads to less than 1 alert per customer per day. So you can imagine the huge amount of noise that is generated from security telemetry. We don't want you to feel the pain of that noise, and we want to make sure that if we ever have to tell you that there's a problem, that it's something you will be confident that you have to do something about. Now, when we talk about ending cyber risk, which is our mission statement, it's a combination of things. The technology, yes, will help reduce the risk to your organization by being able to identify things quickly and being able to react to things quickly. However, there is a number of elements where we help. So we have proactive security in the sense that through our cyber resiliency assessment, you can plan where, or you can identify through your own assessments where your gaps might be. And that might be against the NIST or the CIS or the Cyber Essentials framework. You can train your users. You can provide your users with a managed security awareness training platform that helps them identify themselves and prevent some of those things getting through. They're your human firewall. If you can train them to spot some of the things that come through at their desktop level, then risks are going to help be reduced. There are existing risks that are in your environment, and that's going to be picked up through vulnerability management through our managed risk platform, identifying weaknesses in the existing platforms that you already have, and reduce the likelihood of those being exploited. And then we have our IR Jumpstart retainer, the ability to create an incident response plan so that in the event of something bad happening, you're prepared and ready to move ahead very, very quickly. So that can help reduce the risk by up to 90%. But then we have to talk about, that's a reduced risk of things happening. But what about the severity of something if it does happen? And that's where managed detection response and incident response both come into their own. It's about reducing the severity of an incident if the worst were to happen. Yes, we can reduce the risk, but then we can never say 100% that no customer can ever or will ever be impacted. That would be a false narrative. So what we then say is, well, how can we help reduce the risk should the worst ever happen? And that's done through managed detection response that we've talked through, and also through our incident response services, should they ever be needed. True digital forensics and incident response services. And we don't just say, well, that's enough, because there is a financial gap. Even if you have cyber insurance, you will almost certainly have an excess. And so if you have to go through that process of claiming on cyber insurance, wouldn't it be nice if you had some form of warranty or financial cover from your security provider that will help you cover that additional costs of, for example, your excess in the event of a claim for helping you resolve the problem. So we offer up to $1.5 million of financial coverage. It has obviously dependencies, depends on which tools you take from us and over which term, but we start at $100,000 and we move up to 1.5 million, depending on the tool sets that you're actually using. I mentioned the IDC MarketScape. Some of you may be surprised that actually Arctic Wolf is so high on its capabilities, and the only reason we weren't further right on the strategies is we weren't such a global company. Now we've acquired Silence, we've increased the number of countries we work into, and our capabilities in the EDR front significantly. So we're really looking forward to next year's IDC MarketScape and see where that moves us. But again, feel free to go and have a look at that in detail as to what IDC has to say about Arctic Wolf, because there's some really interesting information in that. So in sort of summary, the right solution means being built on an open platform, not being tied to one particular vendor or solution. Don't get tied to your EDR solution for everything else that you have to do around security. Work with a vendor who is vendor neutral and make sure that it's right for you and your organization without that sort of vendor lock-in approach. But also it needs to be built to be based upon outcomes. It's not about tickets. It's not about meeting SLAs with tickets. It's about what is the outcome of an incident, who owns the outcome by addressing the needs that you as a specific organization have based upon the type of organization you are, the number of people you have, the risk that you face. And then it's also got to be a solution that's built for scale and breadth. You can find a very small MSSP who might be, round the corner from themselves. But actually, you need someone who has got the scale to use that AI platform that we talked about earlier to be able to understand that it's not just 50 customers that they're looking across, it's more than 5,000, 7,000 customers, and you get great learnings and understandings from a large customer base. Before I finish, because this is my last slide, I'm just going to bring forward the fact that we do have an Aurora tour to give customers information about our Cylance acquisition and what we're doing with the endpoint platform that we've acquired. And so if you're in Manchester or London on the 12th of March or the 20th of March, feel free to click on the registration link or just search for the Aurora tour on Arctic Wolf and you'll find us on our website. And that is the end of this presentation, and more than happy to open up to any questions if there are any, if you have that Q&A option. But otherwise, feel free to reach out to AJ or myself, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And AJ, do you want to have any final words?
I do, thanks, Phil. Yeah, I've actually had a question through. Why did you buy Cylance?
Great question. So we, being a vendor-neutral MDR player, we were aware that there was a gap. We've never had an endpoint ourselves. We wanted to, but what do? Do you build or do you acquire? And we had an opportunity to really look at the whole market. I think we actually looked at over 100 different EDR tool sets over the last 2 to 3 years. We felt that Cylance was almost the perfect fit for Arctic Wolf, maybe in terms of culture, but also in terms of the platform. It was one we were really interested in. Unfortunately, BlackBerry paid an awful lot of money for them about 4 years ago, and unfortunately didn't necessarily do the best with that tool set. We feel that we can get the best out of that tool set. We feel it fits really, really well with what we do, and is actually a really good endpoint. And so it was a financially, you can look at the numbers in terms of the acquisition. We got a great deal. We got a great deal for a great product, and that's really why I think we went that route. So we did a lot of research in this area, and this was the best of the bunch that was available to us, I believe.
Yeah, as I think Larry Ellison said, it's cheaper to write a check than to write software. I think you got a pretty good,
absolutely, and it's also a lot quicker.
Yeah, indeed. And this is a question more from one of my technical team, but I know that I can give some data on Northdoor. But the increase and the complexity of attacks that people are seeing on their website and their domain. I know that I saw the stats from just our website for the last week, and we bounced off 36,000 attacks, just Northdoor, just one tiny domain in amongst many. What is well, I can't say who is behind these. We could all probably guess, but where are we seeing the increased and more technologically advanced attacks being made? What's driving this?
I think it's a combination of things. I mean, it's obviously there's a lot of, shall we say, disruption in the world right now. But whether or not that, I think it's more down to the fact that cyber criminals are just that, they're criminals. They are out for the money. They're not out for any other, there's no reason other than trying to siphon money out of you as an organization or any other customer who, they want money. There's nothing more to it than that. Now, AI has, sort of, should we say, generative AI has made that a little bit easier for them, in the sense that, no longer do we get sort of emails from Nigerian princes. We get, offering us huge millions of dollars if we open up a bank account. It's much more sophisticated than that. You can ask AI to write a very compelling, well, you shouldn't be allowed to, but you can certainly get it to write very compelling questions. You can also make things look much more genuine than perhaps, and through the use of AI, you can make them look really, really genuine, make them harder to spot. But there are still tells within these, and whilst it might be easier, you can also attack quicker through AI. Computing has moved on, and it continues to move on. So, being able to attack somebody more quickly, more effectively, makes it easier. And the attackers out there, they're now sort of almost diversifying. You have people who might do the initial recon and identify people. They might harvest websites with passwords and usernames. Then somebody might be really good at actually penetrating a firewall, and they'll sell that service on to that vendor. And they're not interested in then maybe stealing the data, so they'll sell it on to somebody else. So there's a huge chain of people involved in this process. And even some of these larger malware or cyber criminal activities, they even have HR departments. They're a big business, and ultimately it's about money. Obviously, other than the state actor threat, which is about probably intellectual property or disruption. It actually might be very worth mentioning at this point. We do have a report on our website, which does go through all the last year's findings. So if you want to have a look at our website and look for that report, it's available on our website for anyone to have a look at and look at sort of some of the trends over the last year.
Thanks, Phil. I did see yesterday that the North Koreans have managed to acquire 1.5 billion out of some crypto currency by doing.
I saw that in Dubai, wasn't it, or somewhere like that?
Which is not a bad return. With that in mind, for those that have attended the webinar, we have an offer available for you for an external vulnerability assessment. Really, what sort of I call that like a hacker's view of your domain. So we will run a service to show you where the potential exploits are that people look for when they're looking at attacking any particular organization. And that's a free service we'll offer for you as a thank you for attending. But from my side, I'd like to say thank you ever so much for listening. Thank you for Phil for explaining very clearly what Arctic Wolf does, and you can see why we've chosen to work with them. Great solution, great price points, which is important, I know, and easy to deploy. So you're not waiting months to get a result. You're in and up and running very, very quickly. On that note, I shall leave. Phil, if you'd like to wrap up, but thanks ever so much for attending, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, thanks, AJ, and thank you everyone for attending, and have a good day. Bye-bye.